this meeting of the Bristol Budget Committee to order on Tuesday, October 29th. Let me look at the agenda. I'm sure the first thing we need to do is get up and salute the flag. Yep. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So, our new business, we just have one item on our new business tonight, which is a general review of the budget and talk about our goals and objectives, see if we want to agree on any sort of formal, official objectives or aims, or so this is basically a working session other than approving minutes of last week's meeting. I don't think we're going to call any votes. I don't think I need a motion, because we're just going to discuss, because we're not going to vote on any of that, at least at this point. So I don't think I need to make a motion and second it and put something on the table. We can just have a discussion. I don't know, does anyone want to start? Does anyone have anything they want to say before I start rambling?
Ramble on.
So, I did a little bit of analysis myself. I mean, we also got the, I don't have it in front of me right now, but we also got the document from the select board on what the objectives are. And one of the things that I heard from last week's meeting from Rob and the select board was basically where, I think I agree, we're in the business of providing services for the townspeople. They expect those services. We need to make sure we provide the resources that the town's employees and are able to do that, all that work. So I look at the budget and
Sorry, Joe Christie just emailed, he won't be able to attend tonight.
he's not gonna come at all.
Right.
Okay. Glad we didn't.
But he
leave him
will
alone.
watch the video after. He said he had his days mixed up.
Okay. Thank you for that update, Christina.
Sorry.
What was I gonna say? So I personally, I agree with that. I think that makes sense. I appreciate the select board sharing the priorities. I wanna make sure that the budget supports that. I did a little bit of an analysis, and the way that I think of the budget is we've got kind of like general operations, the expenses we got, and then we've got a section where we're paying principal and interest on loans, and then part of our warrant article is also water and sewer, but it doesn't really affect the tax rate. We control the budget, but I think we're like all the other people in town. What we really care about is taxes and tax rate. So we don't directly control the tax rate, but we're working to minimize the increase in the budget, I guess is the way I think of it, in order to not spend even more money and have an even bigger tax rates. So I don't think it was last week, it might have been at the budget committee meeting. I know Rob had mentioned, oh, the number doesn't look too bad, and I think he was looking at what I would call the bottom line number, which includes debt service and sewer, and
Where are you on? I'm sorry.
I'm on my own spreadsheet for an analysis that I did.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you look at the budget, you'll see that, if I'm reading this right, I mean, the general operations, the expenses, is just over $7.5 million. And then you add in the debt service is about is $560,000, and water and sewer together are about $1.25 million. And gives you a grand total of about $9.5 million. So that whole thing that is going to go up. The warrant article is going to go up by less than 4%, but water and sewer went down. That's not really going to help our taxes. The principal and interest payments on the debt that we've taken on, we didn't take any more debt, so that's going up at a lower rate. The stuff we really control, adding up all the departmental budgets, is proposed to go up by about 6%. That's not, in my opinion, crazy or unreasonable. I'd still like to go a little lower. What I'm struggling with is, I think we're gonna find a few places to make, I'll call them snips. We'll find places to save a little bit of money. But in order to really have a big impact on this budget, I think that we would have to actually say, we're gonna not do something. And that would be unusual for us to take that step. I don't think I'm real enthusiastic to do that. I'm open to listening to other folks' suggestions. You guys sometimes have great ideas that I don't think about, and I'm like, gee, I wish I'd thought of that. But at this point, I mean, I don't think we're gonna cut a 6% increase in half and still deliver all of the functionality, all of the work that is budgeted in here. So I'm struggling a little bit to, I guess I'm also gonna look for some feedback from you guys, because I'd like to do some cuts, but I'm not seeing anything that jumps out to me as obvious as one of the, so anyway, let me stop. Yes, Walter, please.
When I first joined the budget committee, my major interest was I didn't like seeing the empty spaces on the ballot. The next time I ran for budget committee, my desire was to get a little more for senior citizens out of this budget and to try to slow down the cost of running the town. That's what I wanted to do, and I've tried and it hasn't worked. This is one of the nicest places I can think of where I would want to live. We got a good police department, we've got a good fire department. And I don't want to see the loss of police officers, and I don't want to see the loss of firemen. And I worked my whole life for a wage, and I look at the amounts that some at the top are getting, and I don't agree with it.
Okay,
What I want to say is, I'm all for giving the people that get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and plow my snow, or shovel the gravel out of the road after a rainstorm, or fix our roads, or the policeman that puts his life on the line every minute that he wears that uniform. Those people I want to see get a living wage. And I don't know what a living wage would mean in my salary today. But it looks like we pay a lot of money to the top here. And those people kept getting merit raises, and then a big raise last year after we gave them a beautiful fire safety building, after we gave them a nice town hall, after we've given them a nice library, and everything they've come and asked for, we've given them. But the only one that didn't get anything, or I haven't seen it, are the senior citizens who make up a majority of the taxpayers in this town, and they've been paying taxes a long time. And I think a little more consideration should be given to them because their income's fixed. Mine hasn't gone up 4.5% over the last 5 years, let alone last year. So I'm beginning to lose emotion for the budget committee. I'm beginning to feel as though it doesn't really work for me. I'll tell you what, I'm not saying anything bad about a police officer. Every single one of them has been good with me. Every single fireman has been good to me. the couple of accidents that I've had, when I broke my collarbone and ended up in the hospital, they were wonderful with me. I can't say anything bad about any of them. I don't want them living at a wage that's poverty level. But it's about time we paid a little more attention to the people on the bottom and a little less to the people on top. Protect the ones we're really afraid of losing. I'm afraid of losing the police officer. I'm afraid of losing the guy that plows my snow after a storm. I'm afraid of losing the people that run the wastewater treatment plant. The drinking water in Bristol is as good as you'll find anywhere in this country. I'm all for those people getting a good standard of living. But I think it is our responsibility to watch out for the senior citizens in this town. And that's about all I can have to say about it. I haven't had any bright idea how to spread it. I haven't had any great idea how to provide more. But I do feel as though we haven't been taken care of. I'm lucky I got very good benefits. If I need a nurse, I've got that in my retirement. If I need something, I'm pretty lucky. There's a lot of people out there that aren't quite so darn lucky. And I don't see them being protected the way others have been. That's all. I have no idea how to manage it, but I sure have spoken that way any way I could. And that's what I would like to see, but I don't know how to do it.
Okay, thank you, Walter. I see Janet has joined us. Welcome.
Hi.
Anyone, do you want to comment? Anyone want to comment on what I've said or what Walter said? Go ahead, Buzz.
Well, I did maybe not as
No, that's fine. You
deep
took a
a
look
dive
at it.
as you did, but I did a quick and dirty look at the discretionary stuff. And I kind of agree with you that there's just, the budget committee has done a good job over the years, I guess. I know we did last year. And, we would have to cut services to we would do some SNPs. I think we came up with $100,000 of what you call SNPs last year.
Yeah.
And we'll probably be able to find something like that, but I think the only way we could significantly reduce this beyond a number like that would be to, cut services, and that's a policy decision, that's not our job.
And right, that's what I struggle with is.
And unfortunately, I think Walter is the same thing, you're talking to the wrong place, you should be talking to the select board.
Yeah.
Because that's a policy decision, we can't say, well, we think there should be more money for senior citizens. It's just, I don't think that's within our province.
Can I ask you, is it because you're disappointed that they said there's the sale of the old firehouse and
I'm very
people didn't
upset
discuss the
about
option
that,
of?
but I understand the necessity. But I don't want the sale of the old fire station
Yeah.
to be used to hide or conceal or cover the cost increases. I don't want to hold our tax rate down because of with the sale of the old fire station.
Okay, well, from what I've heard, the building probably won't sell in 2024. So the tax rate for next year will be set by the end of this year. So that won't figure in the calculation. It would potentially have an impact on the following year because it would increase revenue in 25. So when they're setting the tax rate in late 25 or 26.
So the tax rate we're setting now is for 2024. It's your taxes, it's 3 months this year, 3 months next year. Then it's estimated in the spring, so that tax rate gets applied, half of that tax rate in the spring. And then the money would be applied to 2025
Okay.
tax rate, yeah.
So it hasn't been sold. I thought I just skimmed through that.
It can't be.
But
No.
the plan is to sell it,
Well,
no matter what.
So we found out that we can't, so the plan, the board His intent is to sell it, however, they have to have 2 public hearings, which are scheduled,
Right.
and vote. They have to do an actual official vote. So depending on what happens in those public hearings, if somebody swayed the board to change their mind, it could happen that they may vote not to sell it. Their intent is to sell it right now, though.
So that's a thought. If it's not sold, to try to talk them into not selling it if you were, really concerned that because I know you had talked about doing, a retirement center or something on that idea.
I think it's excellent space for
Yeah.
storage for Kelly Park
Mhm.
equipment.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a better place than that old town hall for people to vote. I wouldn't have wanted to have to go up those high stairs into that old town hall last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of don't look forward to it this week, but I am gonna be seen at the election. But I gotta get up there, and there's people in this town a lot more disabled than I am right now. They won't even consider coming down to vote because of the old town hall. But if it was done there, there'd be room for people to park fairly close. It would be a place with different organizations that do provide senior services to have an office or store what equipment they do, or to conduct the services that they provide. I don't want to go into specifics, but
I agree.
we used to get a lot of service from Nana that we're still not getting, but New Lakes Region has improved tremendously. I'm very happy with them. I just wish they were a little better. I wish years ago I had done more and said more and tried harder to keep Nana. If this town had supported Nana better, I think it would have continued. But they got old, they were all old, they were almost volunteers. They didn't make a great deal of pay, but they were all from the medical care profession somehow. And we lost a lot when we let that go. Now, the next thing I want to say, we need those services. And the amount that they're asking for in this budget isn't adequate to entice them to do more for us. And I'm going to be vocal when it comes down to the Lakes Region to get them an increase. I was also vocal taking it away from them. But it got out of my hand when they tried to reduce it to $1. That's when I spoke up and fought hard to get them back. All I wanted to do was slap them hard enough so they caught on to what I think they were doing to it. And they finally did. And I'm not good at writing letters, but they got them. And they did. They have finally started to take good care of the 2 couples that I spoke about.
Well, okay, thank you. So I want to go back just to be clear, the select, I don't want to steal your thunder, but the select board is holding the 2 public hearings to potentially sell the, I'll call it the old firehouse, 85 Lake Street, whatever. You guys keep
85.
Yep.
85 Lake Street. So that is Thursday, November 7th, and Thursday, November 21st at 6 PM.
And
So,
then the third meeting to vote is December 5th.
but if you, so, I just want to say, I encourage you to go to one of
I
those 2
think they
meetings and
did-
share this
The
with
select board
the,
gave the senior citizens in this town a surprise opportunity to speak against it. I never heard about that information sheet that was handed out at the town meeting until we were there. We were given a questionnaire on what to do with that,
Yep.
and there was no announcement, it just happened. And if their decision is based upon that questionnaire, it isn't fair. It isn't fair to pop a surprise on me or anybody else that short. I was mad about that. That should have been well announced before town meeting that that questionnaire was gonna be there. It was deceitful to have it thrown at me that way.
Well, at this point, I'm gonna encourage you to go to the select board meeting, because the group here
I
tonight
will
really
if I
can't do
can
anything
make it.
about that.
But this is all the responsibility I can take right now. But I have gone to the select board in writing with that.
Okay.
They're aware of it. And Scott Sanchagrin is the only one that gave me anything above Pavlin.
Okay.
Can I address?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Just the voting thing, based on, I agree with Walter, the old town hall, I think there's nobody that would disagree that the old town hall is just not appropriate for voting anymore. And to see people trying to trudge up that walkway is just appalling. So, but we were able to speak with the new superintendent, because one of our goals has been to approach the school district to see if we could vote in the school buildings. And he has indicated that it's too late for this year, of course, but as they plan next year's calendar, we can look at voting day and see if that becomes a teacher workshop day, and we would be able to use potentially the high school for voting. It's not definite, but he's more than open to looking at it and trying to make that work, because what we are currently doing is not acceptable.
Yeah, and that would be
Not
ideal, I think.
Not from March, because that's
Right,
still part,
right.
just so people understand, their calendar year is a different school year, so it would be the year starting.
So they
In
make that
September.
calendar up in January, so we would then need to be looking for the next year. from
Right, but it
March.
would be the next academic year, so it would
Right.
probably be the March of 26
26,
election
yes.
that would be in a new
Yep.
place. March of 25, the schools are not available yet.
I don't know, I was promised that this election for president would be the last one in that town hall. I was pretty vocal about that at the last election, and I was promised this presidential election was gonna be the last one that would be held there.
Well,
That's the goal.
But I know one thing, I was here when that school was proposed, and I supported it, and I've been paying for it, but for 2 years, I've been paying taxes to pay for that school. I was here, but I wasn't a taxpayer at the time. But since then, all but 2 years, I have paid for finishing that school. As far as I'm concerned, that school building belongs to all of us. And if we want to use it, we should use it, but it's still not as good as this station down here, and it's still not as useful as that would be to this town. It's gonna be not too long before this town comes in and wants to buy another piece of property for use of storage or some other purpose based upon the activities of this town in the last 10 or 15 years. I say giving up that building is a mistake.
well, I think you've been very clear about that.
I know I have.
I can't do anything as a member of the budget committee to help you with that, so.
And I'm too old to try to run for select board, but I'm mad enough, so as I wish I had.
Okay. I just wanted to go back and touch on the other two things that I heard you say. One is I thought I heard you say that you are concerned that you didn't say department heads, but some of the people that are on the high end of our high end of the wage scale are potentially, I don't know that I disagree with you, but I just want to, I feel I need to, I think I've said this before, the problem for me is that I personally am not comfortable proposing an amendment to a budget line that is a person's salary and changing that. To me, that's about HR function and management, and I just am personally not comfortable. So when we get to those sections you legally, I believe, are allowed to propose an amendment to change those numbers.
Yep.
And I will open my ears and listen to
I
what you
tried
say,
hard
but
to do
I
that last
right now
year.
am
And I was told
not
there was
thrilled
no
with the idea.
default budget. If the town had stopped this past year's budget, that there was no default budget, and there is a default budget according to the New Hampshire Municipal Association. If you fail that budget, the old budget is the default budget.
If you were SB two, there's a default budget that's spelled out as to how you can use a default budget. So you would take whatever contractual expenses you had in the budget from the prior year, but it would be no new items. And the school goes on that, and Alexandria, a few other towns are SB two. I don't like SB two personally, but that would be, you could go to a default budget.
I know one thing, if that had been turned down, they'd come back and negotiated with us a little bit, with a little more concern for what people are paying and doing in this town. And I'm gonna go and say, I don't think there's any place else in New Hampshire which is more cost effective than Bristol, but that doesn't mean I should go along with making it worse.
So I am not a lawyer, I'm certainly not an expert on all our RSAs. My understanding is that when we get to the town meeting, when the warrant article for the budget comes up, if that vote fails, the town meeting cannot adjourn until they approve a budget. So you have to sit there and make more proposals to change and then vote on those. And in the end, you have to approve some budget. That's the main outcome of the town meeting. Okay.
The previous budget, the last one approved, would be it.
No.
Unless we got some concessions.
Okay.
So what, this did happen one year at town meeting where somebody stood up at the end and made a huge cut to the budget.
Okay.
And, do you remember what year it was, Christina? It was,
I think it was before 2020, because we had to we had to come back and reconvene to do the cut.
so that would be the opportunity to make a cut to the budget. Happens that anybody could stand up and do that, and if it passed through the body, then the budget would be reduced and the select board would have to work with whatever budget they have. But again, you can do it that way, but you are gonna have an impact on services. I mean, it's just the reality of it. So, and I would like to address, just briefly,
Go ahead.
the idea that some of our employees are making more than maybe what they're worth or what we think they should make. And that has been a long-range plan with the select board as many years as I've been on, is to try to get people up to a rate of pay that is comparable for what they're doing and what is with other towns. And there's nothing worse, and I'm sure it will happen when I leave my position, than when they go out to hire somebody for someone's position and they pay them significantly more because they can't get anyone to fill that position. And that's just such a slap in the face to the people that have stayed with the town and been loyal to the town. But that's the reality, that we're trying to keep up with other like positions.
And everybody agrees with, I agree with it too, but here's the thing, so we thought last year everybody was brought up to where they should be in the surrounding districts. Everybody was brought up, but I can see there were different raises proposed that are above like a 4 to 5% that you would automatically do as a step raise. So what's happening this year that would be different, that why some would be more raises than others, is what I'm saying. So what justifies that? Because they were brought up last year, is what I understood.
How can I answer part of that? So part of that, when you're looking at the percentages, are that we budgeted, so if for 2024, it was only budgeted to increase people from April 1st on. So part of that increase is a whole year at 2024's rate. the second part of it is there is a 3% step, which is the step going from one step to another for an employee. That's 3%. And then the select board did a 1% wage scale adjustment, which is a cost of living. So it's only 4% increases. Anyone who went up higher than that, it could be, it was a change in title. There has been it has not public yet in a department. We will be making that public shortly. But there will be a title increase for someone. Other than that, there was an increase in hours. In the executive budget, we added hours to one position. And then there was an added hours to the fire department position. But we tried to offset that by taking the welfare out. So the welfare officer is being added, their hours were hopefully added into the fire department. So some of those changes might be additional hours. And we can certainly explain that when we get to those budgets for you.
Yeah, because
So,
and that's why,
yeah.
and I think that that's all, really, the biggest part of everything is that when people see that, it's like,
Correct.
whoa, why is this happening? You know,
Correct.
once they have the
Yeah.
information, it's a lot better. You just
Yeah.
need that information.
Yep,
Mhm.
so.
Okay.
I try to put the notes in so you would know that information, but it's a lot when you're looking
is,
at
yeah.
a huge budget lines. So every department head, when they meet with you, will certainly explain if there were any increased hours, if there was any promotions within the department. They would do that. I was trying to think, I think it's only, and don't hold me to this because I'm trying to remember, but I believe it's only one department that had a promotion. There's a lot of empty positions that are being filled, so we should have almost all of them filled by the end of the year. That's the first time. But I was trying to think what else. There were no added positions. They were just increased hour, half a person technically in the executive budget. And then the increase in hours for one person in the fire department budget. And then there's a promotion that hasn't been announced just yet, so I will work on that before that person comes to this meeting, so.
Right, right.
But, I
Yeah,
think
that's all easily
yeah.
explained, that's fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
What we had done, and I'm sorry, we felt that it was much better to put all of the pay rates in their budgets.
Mhm.
Not put it all in one line where you saw a one lump sum and it told you that we're gonna spread this out to everybody over the year. So
Right.
the select board voted those budget transfers and those have moved into the budget lines this year. And then because they're only April to December, you had 3 more months now this year that had to be budgeted at those rates. And then their step increase on top of that for the rest of them, so.
So now, as for the most part, next year, let's say, would be all up to.
You're gonna still see
You will still see a 3.
You're still gonna see a little bit, it depends on what the board at that time decides. If they say no to step increases,
Right.
or they have to review that every year and they have to decide whether they're gonna do any increase.
Yeah.
So this year it is 4% increase total,
Mhm.
average, for everyone. But you're still going to see an increase even if they don't vote because you're only budgeting April to December. So for 2025, that line's budgeting April to December at that
At the-
new rate, but so the following year, you have to budget a full year at that new rate, but we thought it was still cleaner to do that than to put it all in one lump sum, so you didn't know what people
Right.
really truly were getting until the following year, so.
Right,
And the-
right.
I was just gonna say, I had needed to have the old system explained to me more than once.
Right,
I know you didn't do it for me, but I'm very thankful that that the town made the accounting changes that they did. I think the new
It is.
system is more
It's
easy
more
to understand and
transparent.
transparent.
The only thing would be to make it cleaner, would be if the board decided to do retroactive, so those increases wouldn't go into effect still till April, but they'd be retroactive and you'd see a full year budgeted then. And that would be cleaner than having to try to explain it every year that you're still gonna have an increase whether they get an increase or not, and then to explain to you what those increases
Yeah,
are.
that's harder
so.
to, yeah. it's harder
Yeah,
to-
yeah. So the cleanest way again is they would have to say, no, the raises are going to affect they wouldn't be given to them till April, but they'd be in effect January 1st, then that would be cleaner for budgeting purposes.
Yes, yeah.
But that would have to be a board decision if they wanted to do that in the future ever, so.
I think one of the major concerns for the board was, we don't wanna have to come back to the town and say we need to make a huge increase in all of these salaries. We wanna keep the rates up to date so that we don't ever have to do that again. At least that's the feeling of this board.
Well, everybody can understand that though, because in an outside world, you get 3% to 5% every year based on, you know, what your job is, how well you perform, that type of thing. That's a standard thing though, to get a 3% raise or more, unless the company, let's say, is really faltering, or the town, like in this case, would be, you know, that type of thing. So usually it's a standard thing. Most people understand that, because that's the outside working world, you know. Or in the business world, let's say someone like who's a lawyer or self-employed or something like that.
20%.
20%. Yeah, exactly, like a huge bonus or something, but in the standard wise, it's, yeah, that's about right, so it does make more sense.
I disagree with you. If the ivory tower level, but
There are,
I was a senior officer and I was not at the ivory tower level. My salary would get a 3 to 5% increase, but the incentive compensation would.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and that was, multiple salary, but the salaries were the same as everybody else's
Standard.
unless you were,
3 to 5, yeah.
unless you were the top 5 guys in the company. And they just, it's everything that's wrong with America, they were just using the company as a piggy bank.
Right. I think that's what the hardest time I'm having with, like visiting nurses and all those things. They get paid. I mean, they get paid for Medicare, insurance, whatever it is. So they make a thing. What we give them should be, in my mind, like a stipend. You're doing this because you're doing extra. You're not paying their salary. You're not, so when someone is a company that's profitable, where they're not a non-profit company, you kind of question, where does that money go? Why are we giving so much when they're just coming in here and doing a few little extras? I don't think it's our job. We're not trying to supplement their pay, because if you have 17 or 70 counties that are paying $30,000 a piece, that's a huge profit for a company, but they're getting paid to begin with. So I ever have a hard time figuring that out, where we're at, where is our obligation, why do we pay or think of paying so much? I understand you want to keep them into there to the services, but they're going to come anyway. Maybe they don't do the extras. That's probably what it is that you're talking about, that gives them the incentive to come and do the extras, but they have to do the job anyway. They have to come and get paid for it by your insurances. So I guess I'm a little confused on that one.
Nana used to get compensation from the insurance, but they got a lot more from Social Security before. They lost that. A lot of the problems we face aren't the select board's fault.
Yep.
A lot of problems that we face, almost all of them, are national. But even Nana didn't get enough from insurance companies to give us the services they need, because we lost Nana. So they weren't getting enough, and they were getting 33,000 something a year. If we want the services from Lakes Region that we were getting from Nana, we've got to support them, and it means more than 33,000 a year if we want the same services.
But how do we know that they're not getting more? So
They're getting less. The payments from Social Security to
Social
medical
Security
care
itself pays less.
are less,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
Like Social Security itself is not getting raises. So you're paying for something that you don't even have the money for if it's coming out of Social Security.
Yep.
So that doesn't make sense either to me. You know what I mean? Like, that still is part of their job, with a little incentive to say that you're gonna continue paying a certain high amount.
I sure wish we had the care we had with Nana. We don't.
We didn't. That was probably them themselves doing the due
It
diligence
was
to
them, there
to
were
them.
people
Yeah.
from Bristol primarily that served other people in
Right.
Bristol. When you went in there, you saw people you've known all your life,
Mm.
and they had a little bit of care for you. And they took good care of
Yeah.
my father and my mother. They took care of me when I had my heart attack. I've had a couple of bouts with cancer, and they took excellent care of me, but we've lost them now. As I said, I wish now that I had done more, but I didn't. But I don't want to sit quietly by and let things that I don't agree happen. I'm saying it's about time people a lot smarter than me should begin to care for the older people in this town. There was so many people we've lost in the past couple of years that their whole life, just like Les Dion, has been for the people of this town. Les Dion has been a hero of the underdog all the time that I've watched her. I wish we had more people like Les Dion. But we lost Nana. And if we want Lakes Region to be as good, we've got to motivate them somehow to do better. And it takes money. It took money with Nana to do it. It takes money for that motivation. And the age of people in Bristol isn't getting younger. It's getting older because we do live longer. We shouldn't be finding a way to cut money for senior services. Of all of the things we fund, that's one we should be doing our best to improve upon. That got away from me when it went from 32 down to 1, and I fought like the devil to get it back to 16.
Well-
And I'm gonna fight hard to get it up closer to the 33,000 that it was.
I just want to point out, I know there was a motion to take it down to 1. That motion, that was never approved. We didn't actually go to 1, but it
Yeah.
was discussed.
I did fight it hard.
And you did. So what I'm hearing you say, and I'm fine with that, is that our next meeting in 2 weeks, we're gonna discuss the lines for all the outside agencies, and you've made it pretty clear that you're gonna propose an amendment to increase at least one of those numbers.
Yep.
And we will discuss that and vote on that next week. I don't wanna cut you off, but I don't
hear
wanna
you.
talk about something that we're not actually gonna decide until the next meeting.
But it hasn't been talked about enough, and I'm trying to keep that in motion.
Gotcha. So, Janet, I don't know if we've given you an opportunity to jump in. Did you have anything you wanted to say or contribute to this? Not at this time. Okay.
No.
Just want to make sure we're not forgetting you're in the room with us.
Fine. Thank you, though.
Okay. So, I said it before, I struggled. I guess part of the thing I'll tell you, Walter, the other story I would tell you is, so last year, before we finalized the budget, I was looking for more places to make more cuts. I don't know that I think I've told at least somebody about this, but I haven't told everyone. So I said to myself, well, we know that the police department has an empty position, they're down a person. So I said, well, I don't want to propose something for this meeting, and so I went to talk to Chief Bean, and I said, hey, you know, would you support the fact that we could cut your budget because you don't have a person and you're not spending the money? And he said, the way we've structured and I don't understand all the details, so please don't ask me questions. But what I understood him to say was, we've structured the department that we have 10 people. If I've only got 9 people on the roster, I'm paying people to work overtime, because for safety reasons, I don't want someone working alone on the 3rd shift. So I always want 2 people on duty in the department at every time. So if the guy out on a call says, hey, this person's acting like a jerk, I need some help, there's another person that's gonna be there within a couple of minutes. So even though his comment was, yeah, I'm not spending it on salary, but I'm spending it on overtime because I still am scheduling the same number of shifts. So if Paul Regan were king of the world, which is not the situation, I would be like, well, what does Danbury do? What does Allegheny do? They have a police officer that works, either they don't staff the overnight shift, at most they have one person, other towns do that. I would question that. But I decided I wasn't gonna bring it up because again, now that's more about policy than it is about budget. And that's really a conversation that the select board and the chief should have, not the budget committee and the chief should have. So that's why I'm struggling, is because anything that I can think about that would have a significant impact on the budget also would have a significant policy impact. And I think it would be difficult, but I would want to go back and not just do it and tell the town and the select board we've done this. I'd want to go back and negotiate that with those people and see if they agree. That's a hard thing to do. Because they've already, the select board has already had their meetings to talk about these things. These things in the budget are the things that the select board said, yes, these are services we want to provide. If we say we're gonna save the town a lot of money by not providing the service, I think it would be silly to think that the select board is quickly gonna say, oh yeah, that's a great idea. If it was a great idea and an easy idea, you would have thought of it already.
The police department, I don't think the police department's increased. Then, Christina, do you know, I don't know when we added,
That would have been, we did a new officer last year.
and that was prior to that.
Prior to that, it's been year, I'd have to go look, but it has
would be
been,
Barry Wingate's time before he retired.
I think it would have been close to that, yep.
Yeah, so that was a long time. And-
Yeah, no, it's been-
And then if we look at what they're doing for call volume, and what the other pieces, what they've faced this year in some of their calls, is
Don't
just
look at the town
astounding.
report yet, though.
Oh, not yet?
No, we had the problem with this year's town report has the wrong statistics in it. Somebody from.
The town report from last March.
Yeah, the one we put in for 2024 has the wrong police
Oh.
statistics. It matches the year before by mistake. We are putting both statistics into this town report. So we're gonna put the one that should have been in the town report and we're gonna put the new one in, so, and with a blurb explaining why, so.
It's almost better that way, they can compare year to year.
Yeah, so.
So, I don't know, I'm starting to wind down here. At this point, personally, I'm not planning or not comfortable making a motion to propose a formal, we've got 6% increase in general services, do we want to aim for 5? I'm thinking that we're better off just going through department by department, line by line,
Yeah.
cutting where we can.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll,
Aim
Well,
for maybe
we'll-
possibly 100,000 like we did last year.
that,
Anything beyond that's probably good.
so, that would be my approach, but I'm only one of 7, so I'm open to other thoughts or suggestions, Walter.
I think it's most important for the townspeople to see that we take every single item and consider it.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's the most important thing we can do, is to show the townspeople that we are considering each and every item. And
Okay.
I don't think anyone can do a better job as chairman of this board than you have.
Well, thank you, Walter, but
No?
let's see how we do in 3 months from now.
Well, we can slide out
Actually,
and
it's-
get there.
Yeah, okay. So, are we done with our general review on the proposed select board budget and discussing budget committee goals? Does anyone else have anything else they want to say or share?
Did you want to take a vote on which way we're gonna go for like our,
Well, if we're not,
Without doing
so
percentage,
if you want to make a motion to propose a formal goal or objective, I'm open to that idea, but I'm also okay with not doing that and just continuing to go through the budget line by line. Did you want to?
oh yeah, no, I want to go through line by line, but do we have to put like last year we were talking about 4% and we wanted to cut, go no higher than that and see what we can do. we don't wanna do that this year, just go line by line and see what happens.
I think that makes sense. We're not, by not,
So we don't have to vote on it.
I'm open to correction, but I don't think we have to vote on that. That's our normal
No.
procedure. We go department by department, line by line, that's what we always do.
Yep.
Okay.
And we're saying we're gonna cut where we see opportunities to cut, but we're not, at this point, we're not setting a specific
Right.
number goal.
Okay.
I
Just wanna be
agree with
clear.
that. I think if we set a specific number goal, we're coming to the policy aspect of this through the back door. Because we're basically saying we want to cut services.
Mhm.
I think we just have to do what we did last year and, you know, we'll find some places, hopefully, and maybe we'll get to $100,000,
I hope so.
which is chump change in the size of the budget.
Out of it.
But that's just
Something.
the way it is.
Yeah.
This town runs lean and mean.
Okay. So, not hearing any disagreements or any other comments, I'm gonna close this discussion and move on to the next agenda item. Just stopping in case someone, okay. So our next agenda item is to approve the minutes from last week's meeting. So, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the October 22nd, 2024 meeting. Could I get a second? Seconded by Walter. That's now on the table. Let's talk about corrections and adjustments. And I look at my expert corrector.
Well, I had on the first page, I had a question in the final paragraph, and I think Walter's answered it tonight, but in the last sentence, it talks about Walter saying that the town will miss the historic building. I thought that the gist of your comments were that you weren't saying goodbye to it, you wanted it to stay
Yep.
as town property. So I think that 3 lines up from the bottom where it says we'll miss the historic building ought to probably be revised.
Okay, do you want us to discuss how to revise it, or do you have a proposed?
I didn't, but I wanted to confirm my understanding, but Walter pretty much
So
has done that already tonight.
Would it be regret the loss?
I like that better. Mr. Waring shared his concerns regarding selling the property, noting that the senior population of the town will regret the loss of this building. Does that work for you, Walter?
Yep, that works for me, yep.
Okay, thank you, Buzz.
Okay?
Next.
At the top of the next page, the second line down ends with easier to identify. This is just grammar. It should be identification rather than identify.
Okay, I'm sorry,
Well, you-
I'm not finding
So
it.
you were-
Second line from the top on page 2. Just says,
And easier to identify when reviewing the budget?
well, yeah, instead of one lump sum under the general government for transparency and easier identification.
Okay, so replace
It's just
to
grammar.
identify with identification.
Right.
Transparency and identification, they
Right.
should be in the same
Right, yes.
conjugation of word,
Right.
yeah. Okay,
Third paragraph begins,
yeah.
begins, Mr. Glassett,
Mm-hmm.
but no longer is an individual department.
Okay, so Mr. Gladson stated that forestry was budgeted for, but is, inserting the word is, no longer an individual
Right.
department. Gotcha.
And in the last full paragraph begins with Mr. Glassett.
Yeah,
In
we
the
got a lot
third-
of, we got a lot of Mr. Gladson. last
Yeah,
week.
well, he had a lot to say. In the third
You
line,
can tell him I said that last.
in the third line, it says, in the highway budget by $50,000, and is, it should be and are. It's just grammar.
Mr. Greenwood decreased the paving line in the highway budget by $50,000 and,
Our focus.
Because it's talking about select board and
Oh,
Mr.
Mr.
Greenwood.
the select board and Mr. Greenman
Are.
are focusing on
Right.
fixing, yeah,
Right.
okay, gotcha. I made the mistake of starting reading with Mr. Greenwood, and so I didn't say the
Yeah.
select board, and I'm like, okay.
On the third page under capital improvements committee presentation,
Mm-hmm. Hold on,
I was
Christine.
just gonna say, on the page you're still on, I have a correction.
Oh,
Okay.
If you're,
Ah.
the last, so the, underneath where we were just fixing the highway, it
Mhm.
says, Ms. Goodwin stated the sewer collection pumping. It's the Central Street Pump Station and Force Main project. So it really shouldn't be sewer collection pumping.
Okay, so
So it's not,
I see, okay, so on that paragraph, and to be honest, that's said something different before I edited it, so that's mine,
oh,
so.
okay.
So what should it say?
It should be Central Street Pump Station and Force Main project.
Okay, so, but still starting with sewer, so Ms.
No.
Goodwin stated that as the,
Central Street Pump Station and Force Main project begins.
gotcha, okay. So it's the Central Street Pumping Station and Forced Main project,
Yep.
okay?
That's what's already on here, right?
Yeah, so it doesn't talk about collection. So in my mind, it was the building that collects and pumps on
Right.
Central Street and the forced main, and I was trying to describe those two things, because that's what the project is, but I didn't use the right words.
You're fine.
Okay.
Okay, and
Yep, next page for
yeah,
CIP.
on, the first paragraph under capital improvements
Mhm.
committee presentation, in the next to the last line at the end, it says, Mr. Milbrand stated the narrative relays, it should be relates.
Okay, so replace the word relays with
Yeah,
relates,
Right.
okay?
And then finally, in review and approval of the minutes, motion to approve amended minutes for October 8th, and then strike minutes as amended, because you've already said amended minutes.
Motion to approve amended minutes for October 8th
By Mr.
by
Waring.
Mr. Waring, seconded by,
Yep.
yep, motion passed.
And
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions, suggestions, corrections? Okay, so I will call a vote. We're going to vote on approving the minutes of the October 22nd, 2024 meeting as amended. I have to do roll call because we have someone participating by Zoom.
I'm gonna say abstain.
That's
because I
fine.
wasn't here
I'll
last
vote
week.
for.
Aye.
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 Janet?
Aye.
Okay, so we have one abstention and 5 ayes, so it passes 5-0-1. All right. Correspondence. Does anyone have any correspondence they want to share with the committee? Didn't think so. Okay. Comments, select board and budget committee members. Bless you, anything going, you guys haven't had a meeting since we met
No,
last
I
week, so you don't have anything new to tell us.
Anything new? Well, Halloween's tomorrow, that's exciting.
That is,
Not tomorrow,
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Yep, so expect traffic in the square and North Main will be shut down.
Yep. So comments, I will tell you, I didn't bring it up under correspondence because I'm gonna bring it up in 2 weeks. I'll let you know that I sent a request to the police chief, fire chief, and welfare administrator to ask them if they had any comments or information they wanted to share with us about outside agencies, because I wanted to make sure that, I thought those, in my mind though, and I asked Christine if she thought any other departments were appropriate to feel free to send that on. But I think of those as kind of the 3 departments that do a lot of interacting with the public. And if they had any comments on the outside agencies, I wanted to make sure they would have an opportunity to, that we would have an opportunity to hear that. So I've gotten some response, but not all of it. And rather than do that now, I'll do it next week when we're, in 2 weeks when we're actually talking about that section of the budget. That's my comment. Do you have a comment?
Well, actually, it's more of a question,
Go ahead.
because I wasn't here last week and I didn't get to see the minutes or anything yet. Do we get any of the other agencies who did not show up? Did they respond, or are they going to be showing up at another time, or is that it? Because there were like 4 at least that didn't show up.
There were three,
Three,
and of
okay.
the 3, 1 withdrew.
Oh,
and
okay.
chose not to submit, but we haven't heard anything from the
Anything
other
from
two.
the others.
And we reached out to them again,
You did, but no
but we've not,
response.
no response, so.
Okay, that's what I was just
Yeah.
wondering, because I knew you said you did, yeah,
That's my understanding, so.
okay. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can certainly have Shannon reach out again, but they haven't
You take
responded
it
to her.
again, no. I can take it.
All right. Buzz, any comments?
Nope.
Walter, any comments? Janet, any comments?
None.
All right. Staff, Christine, any comments?
Nope.
All right. Does anyone else have anything before we take a motion to adjourn? Not hearing anything? Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a
No?
I'll make a motion to.
Motion from Sue, seconded by
Second.
Buzz to adjourn. All in favor? Do I have to do a roll call for this?
Technically, we can say roll call vote. Yeah.
Okay, aye,
Aye. I said
I,
aye. Okay, so we have all 6 ayes, so I don't need to do opposes and nays. Thank you very much. Just as a reminder, our next meeting is in 2 weeks.